Hi, everybody. So today I just want to go over with you what I mean when I'm talking about annotating a nonfiction or informational text. So you hopefully have annotated something before in your life. It was probably some fiction text, like if you were reading a book in another English class. But since our unit is focused on nonfiction, I wanted to go over some expectations and some ideas for what you could do while annotating. So let's read. Annotating informational texts. To annotate is to examine and question a text, to add critical notes. You can do this with fiction and nonfiction. For example, with fiction, good readers do more than just read the text for plot. They think about the text, interact with the text, make connections between the text and the real world. The same is true for nonfiction, except there's no plot. In many cases, plot is substituted with a presentation of information, informational texts like history books, articles, etc., or logic, persuasive pieces like editorials or essays. Regardless of the type of text you encounter, you should always be engaging with it, meaning you're thinking about it as you read it, not asking for its hand in marriage. If you do not engage with the text, you run the risk of the information becoming mental floss in one ear, out the other, and you either have to reread it or sacrifice knowing its meaning. So how do you go about doing this? One way is to learn through annotation. An annotated text is often marked with underlines, highlights, and symbols that mean something to the reader. Of course, too many markings will make a text illegible, and too few won't help much at all. Furthermore, an article isn't really annotated without notes, comments, or questions posed by the reader. Simply underlining or highlighting doesn't help you dive deeply into a text or remember what you were reading and thinking when you look back on the source as a whole later on. So, what should you know in your annotations of nonfiction texts? So here we have a little pre-reading, during reading, after reading situation. I'm going to read through those with you right now. But I do want to emphasize that for the purpose of our assignments, when I'm asking you to choose a source and annotate it for the criminal justice unit that we're in, you must have words. You must leave words. If you were to just turn in a source that has some sporadic highlighting or underlining, and there's no additions by you, I'm not going to count that. That's not annotating because I can't really tell what meaning you have made from those underlines, highlights, etc. So it has to be something that I can see you really engaging with. And as I said here, making notes, comments, posing questions, basically having stuff in the margins. And a really easy way to do that on Google Docs is to highlight something, and you see on the edge here that it gives you the option to add a comment. You can click the little plus sign, or the keyboard shortcut is to do Control Alt and the letter M as in Michael, and it lets you add a comment, blah, 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 and click comment. And I will be able to see this when you turn in the document to me. So highly suggest that as your way of fully annotating your text. But these are some things to think about and do to help you actually engage with the text. You do not have to do any of these. These aren't like required, must follow A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. But these are ideas and examples of ways to annotate. So everyone has their own little niche thing. As long as you are in some way engaging clearly with the text, that's fine with me. So pre-reading. Examine the title and consider what it means by asking a question or making a prediction about the title. Identify information about the author, source, and publication date. Skim through the piece and turn any and all subheadings or subtitles into questions, make predictions about them, or add comments about them. Circle all unusual text features or examine any graphs or images included in the text. Identify the topic or subject and jot down prior knowledge, anything you already know of the topic or questions you might have at the start about the topic. So basically just thinking about what you're gonna be reading about and what you already know about that topic before you actually read the source. During reading, I know this sounds time consuming, but I promise it's super beneficial. Read everything without marking the text, then read it again and mark up the text. This could also be done one paragraph or one section or chunk at a time. You don't have to read 5 pages, then go back and read 5 pages in one go. Identify and underline the thesis or main idea if the document has one. Highlight, underline, or otherwise identify things that are repeated, restated, or rhetorical questions posed by the author. Highlight, underline, or otherwise identify any signal or cue words that help you identify text structure. So help you notice whether the author is pointing out some sort of cause and effect, if they are comparing and contrasting something, if they're presenting information in a specific chronological order that needs to be remembered, or presenting problem solution correlations. Next, note if the article answers any of the predictions or questions that you created when you were looking at those subheadings before. Highlight, underline, or other words, identify any vocabulary that you don't know, and then obviously follow up by searching up the meaning of that word and making sure you understand it in the context that it's being used. And last, as I said before, probably the most important part of annotating, write notes as you read. In the margins, you could do this if you're handwriting, or you could do it with comments on a digital document. These notes should align with what you're thinking, feeling, wondering as you digest the source information. These could be things like summarizing a paragraph or summarizing a section of a source, making predictions about what you think might be coming, especially if it's telling like an account of something, or a cause and effect type thing. Your emerging opinions, whether you're agreeing or disagreeing with things the author is saying, making connections, text to self, text to world, text to text. We know how to do those. Identifying and analyzing the author's point of view, tone, diction, etc. And then after reading, you always want to reflect after you're done and make sure you really got it. So complete the statements. The author's purpose for writing this is, and the source's main message is, and to help you review what you've just read or learned. Hint, if it's hard for you to think of those things and answer those questions, you may need to reread or at least go back and skim through your annotations as a refresher. I always think of annotations as a little timestamp of what's going on in my brain when I was reading that part of the article. So if I read like a 10-page article and then I can go back and look at all my little comments, it's like a little blurb of what I was thinking at the time or an important thing that I've noticed in that article. You can also write notes about other things, like things that stand out to you, facts that you didn't know. You can have reactions to things. The amount of time I've written WTF in the margin of something, I can't count. Obviously, that shouldn't be your only note, but having reactions to what you're reading is perfectly normal. So that is what I would suggest you do. Pick and choose from these ideas from when it's your turn to annotate. Just again, make sure that for the purpose of my class, when you're annotating a text, it needs to be more than just underlining or highlighting or bolding something. There needs to be an addition of words, thoughts, ideas, comments from you as you are reading. Okie dokie, folks. Happy reading.